week of dinners. Hello family, welcome back. If you're new here, I just want to say welcome. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I would love to have you part of the Grammy family. So the first meal we're going to have this week is some chicken wings. I'm going to go ahead and parboil the wings. Put some in the freezer, some we're going to have for dinner tonight, plus some French fries. So let's go ahead and get the wings started so we can get those on the stove so they can parboil. The wings were not on sale. They were $2.98 a pound. So this one rack was $14.90. Family, the husband wanted wings, and we were at Food Lion, but it's sure cheaper than going out to eat. So there's 3 parts to the wings. I like to cut mine in half so that I have 2 parts to cook, and this wing tip, I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag and save it for the next time we need to make chicken stock. So I'm just going to break these in half. Put them in the large stock pot so we can get those on the stove. And I'm not sure how long it takes to boil to cook those, but I will keep a track of that and let you know. I'll tell you how long it took for the water to come to a boil and how long the chicken wings had cooked. I'm not cooking them all the way done. I just want to cook them so it doesn't take as long to bake. Having a hard time finding that joint right there. There we go. Do you hear some noise? The husband is outside cutting grass. So the chicken wing tips will go into the freezer. I have just enough water in this pot to cover the wings, but I do like adding pepper. This is a teaspoon. And I like to add salt. And that's all the seasoning we're going to do on these wings. Just give them a little stir. So I have it on medium heat. I do have a little opening right here, just so when it boils, it won't boil over. And I'll let you know how long that took to cook. Bring it up to a boil and then cook them until they're almost done. Chicken wings has to cook 165 degrees. I'm probably going to cook these between 130 to 140 degrees. That way we can bake them to get them up to that 165 with some hot sauce. So it took the wings 33 minutes to come up to a boil, and then I let them boil for 10 minutes. That should be good. But I do want to check the temperature, know where we're starting before we start cooking the wings for dinner. And they are 150 degrees, perfect. And we're not going to throw this water away. This is actually just chicken stock. We're planning on having soup one day this week, so I'm just going to save that for the soup. So as for the chicken wings that we're going to have for dinner, I have 2 tablespoons of butter that I melted. I'm going to add a half a cup of Texas Pete. Use any kind of hot sauce you like. I'm going to add a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Now once these cool, we're going to put them in vacuum seal bags and put them in the freezer. And I have 12 in this hot sauce. Just going to give it a little toss. Place it in the air fryer. I have some store-bought French fries in the fry basket going in the air fryer. I have it set for air fryer. We're going to do it for 30 minutes. So the French fries are done. Go ahead and put some on the plate. Ooh, they are hot. And the chicken wings. Ooh, very warm. And that's what we're having for dinner. Can't wait to bring you in the kitchen and make another delicious meal together. So while editing this video, I realized I didn't have the microphones on. So it's all video and no audio. So that's why we're doing a voiceover. Today we're going to be making a mini Thanksgiving dinner. So right here is the bread that we made yesterday. The 1 pound loaf that I cut up into cubes and I toasted them. They took a couple hours. Then I have 2 sweet potatoes that I put in the oven, baked those for about an hour and a half. As for the chicken, this is an 8 pound chicken we got from a local farm who butchers and processes chickens and sells them. So I'm just putting a little bit of olive oil on here. In this bowl, I have 1 teaspoon of pepper, 2 teaspoons of each of salt, garlic powder, onion powder, and Italian seasoning. I'm going to mix that in. I do like making my season blend before I touch the chicken. That way I'm not cross-contaminating chicken juice on my jars. And then we're just going to mix that together, pour it on top, rub it in with our hands. And we're going to make sure we get all the little nooks and crannies between the legs and the breast and the wings. And then we're going to turn him over. And we're also going to season the backside. Just make sure we're rubbing it in really well. And then any remainder, I'm just going to sprinkle on the inside. So make sure we're seasoning all inside and outside of this chicken. There's a piece of skin right here that I am going to tuck the legs in. Unfortunately, they do come untucked. I didn't notice it until while editing this video and when I took it out of the oven. As for the wingtips, we're going to try our best to get them tucked under the bird so they don't overcook. We are trying so hard. This chicken is so big. Might as well say it's a small turkey at this point at 8 pounds. But we'll get them in there. We'll be able to get these wings tucked in eventually. Just takes some maneuvering and working on it, but it gets done. Now we're going to turn it back over, breast side up. I've got to wash my hands, and I'm going to add about a cup to a cup and a half of water to the bottom of this pan, just so we're not frying the chicken in an empty, dry pan. We're going to cover it with aluminum foil, and I do have the oven set to 400 degrees. We're going to cook this for about 2 hours with the aluminum foil. Take the aluminum foil off and then cook it for an additional hour. Check the temperature. Chicken breast needs to be 165 degrees and thighs need to be 175 degrees. While we were at the store yesterday, we picked up 10 pounds of russet potatoes. They were actually $1 cheaper than the 5-pound bag. The 5-pound was $7.49 and this 10-pound was $6.49. We just went ahead and peeled and diced all those, and I'm going to turn it into mashed potatoes. Some of this we're going to save for gnocchi because I like having gnocchis in the freezer. The rest of it we're going to make into potato balls so we can have ready to heat and eat mashed potatoes. In addition, we're going to have these for today also. So let's go ahead and get started on the potatoes. So this was 10 pounds of potatoes, and I have 2 sticks of butter. I'm going to add salt. And pepper. And garlic powder. Maybe about a teaspoon and a half. I have some heavy cream that I took out of the freezer this morning. Put in the microwave for about a minute and a half. We'll start with a half a pint. Start mixing. We do need to stop and give it a stir to make sure we're getting to the bottom section. There's a lot of potatoes in here. Let's taste it for seasoning. It needs a little bit more pepper and salt and just about one more teaspoon of garlic powder. And the mashed potatoes are done. So I'm going to let this cool off just a bit before we make our potato mounds to put in the freezer. But I'm going to go ahead and take out what we're going to need for dinner. That should be enough for today for dinner and lunch tomorrow. Now we got to let this cool off and we will deal with that in a bit. And while I was in the freezer, I went ahead and took out some celery and some carrots and some onions that have been diced and frozen. Yesterday we had chicken wings that I parboiled, and I saved the chicken stock or the water that the chicken wings were cooked in. We're going to use that as chicken stock. It's about a half of a quart. I'm going to put this on the stove so it can boil and soften those vegetables. And that's going to be for the stuffing. And we can actually use the rest of this to make a gravy. So we have the chicken in the oven. We have the mashed potatoes sitting right here. And we have our sweet potatoes. Let's go ahead and get started on that sweet potato casserole. So the sweet potatoes were baked for about an hour and a half. And I just want to go ahead and get these peeled. And I'm going to chop them up. I'm just going to put a small pinch of salt. Salt brings out the sweetness in anything that you put sugar, or in this case, maple syrup. Drizzle some maple syrup right on there. I have a little bit of cinnamon left. Just go ahead and dump that in there. It's probably about a teaspoon. Some brown sugar. Probably about a half a cup. And a half a stick of butter. Cover it with aluminum foil. We're not ready to put this in the oven because the chicken's going to take about 2 to 3 hours because it is a large chicken. It's almost the size of a small turkey. Still got the vegetables cooking in the chicken broth for the stuffing. Once we get that together, we'll keep an eye on that chicken. Still need to deal with these potatoes eventually, but family, we're getting there. The chicken has been in the oven for 2 hours. It is almost up to temperature. I went ahead and took the aluminum foil off, let it finish cooking and crisp up that skin. We've got the mashed potatoes, we got the yams. Let's go ahead and work on the stuffing. So we don't use this as stuffing, we use it as a side dish like dressing. This is our vegetables that we cooked in some chicken stock. Add some salt, some pepper, and some sage. And some more chicken stock. A little bit more sage, pepper, salt, and pepper. I have a casserole dish, put a little bit of olive oil, smear that in here very well. Let's put our stuffing dressing mixture in the casserole dish. Here's our chicken. Look how beautiful that is. Looks like the legs came untucked, but that's okay. Let me check the temperature. The breast is reading over 170 degrees. And the thigh is reading over 190 degrees. That is done. I reduced the temperature to the oven to 350 degrees. Once it comes down to temperature, we're going to put in our stuffing and our sweet potatoes in there. In the meantime, we can go ahead and get started on the gravy. I'm using the same pot we cooked the vegetables in, that chicken stock. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter, pinch of salt, and a pinch of pepper. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. Go ahead and add some chicken stock. And we're just going to let that thicken up. And just for a little bit of extra creaminess, I'm going to add some heavy cream, maybe 1/4 cup. Let's taste it for a salt and pepper. It's perfect. Turn the temperature down to low. And this is some homemade macaroni and cheese that we had in the freezer. I took this out of the freezer on Friday, the same time I took that chicken out of the freezer. And I'm just going to put this in the oven along with the stuffing, dressing, and the sweet potatoes. And in less than an hour, we're going to have dinner. As for the mashed potatoes, I'm just going to heat these up in the microwave. So when I cut into the chicken, I realized in between the thigh and the breast meat was not completely done. So I put it back in the oven uncovered for another hour. And it is done. I'm not getting no juices or anything. It is very hot. So I'm going to separate the leg quarters from the whole bird, and I'm going to cut between the drumstick and the thigh as soon as I can find out where that joint is. There we go. Let's do the other side. I'm going to go ahead and remove the whole breast meat right off. And I'm going to go ahead and slice that up. The stuffing is done. So we have our mashed potatoes that I heated up, our sweet potatoes, our macaroni and cheese. We have some gravy and the chicken. That's what we're going to have for dinner tonight, lunch tomorrow, possibly dinner tomorrow night. Then we got plans for any chicken that will be left over after 2 or 3 days of nibbling on that chicken. Can't wait to bring you back in the kitchen. We'll do this again. Oh, one more thing. And we ended up with 17 mashed potato balls in the freezer. I'll insert a picture right here. They're in the freezer firming up, so we could get those in Ziploc bags so we could put those in the freezer for future use. And then I have a bowl of mashed potatoes right here. We're going to turn part of this into gnocchi so we can have gnocchis in the freezer. And I'm probably going to make a few more mashed potato balls also. So I can't wait to bring you back to the kitchen, find out what we're going to do with that chicken in a couple days. And the third meal we're going to make this week is going to be a soup. On Tuesday, there's going to be a video on how I made gnocchi from the leftover potatoes when we cooked that whole 10-pound bag of taters. Please hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get the notification when that video comes out. But we're going to use the gnocchi we made. I have some corn and some green beans, carrots, celery, and onions, 2 quarts of chicken stock. But now we need to go ahead and tackle this chicken. This is probably more chicken than I need for the soup, but I have plans for any that's left over. Just going to remove all the meat from this thigh. And I'm going to just chop them up just a bit. Okay, back to work. So let me just go ahead and tear this whole chicken apart, and then I'll bring you right back when we're ready to move to the stove and start cooking our soup. My fingers stopped bleeding. I was able to finish. This is the meat we got off of the whole chicken. All the bones, not the skin or anything like that, but just the bones. I have it in a Ziploc bag. I will put this in the freezer. And the next time we need to make stock, we'll just gather all of our ingredients and we'll make stock. But let's move over to the stove, start sauteing our vegetables, and get this soup built. So in the large Dutch oven, I added some olive oil, let the pan heat up, and now I have the frozen diced onions, celery and carrots, a teaspoon of salt, and a half teaspoon of pepper. The heat is on medium, and I just want to cook that until the vegetables have thawed and sauteed just a bit. And we're going to cook that for about 10 minutes until all the water evaporates. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. I'm adding 2 garlic pucks. They're probably about 2 to 3 cloves a piece. Add more, add less, whatever your family likes. And if you're new here and you just subscribe and you don't know what I mean by garlic pucks, I'm going to put a link right there in the iCards, plus in the description below, on how and why I make garlic pucks to put into the freezer. But it's super simple, and it's a way to preserve garlic so that you don't lose it because you're not getting to it fast enough. I buy garlic in 5 pounds from Azure Standard. And 5 pounds is a lot. I don't have a cold room to keep my fresh produce a long period of time, so I will process those and put them in the freezer. Same thing with the onions. When I buy onions from Azure Standard, I buy it in a 10-pound bag, and then I'll use some of it as fresh onions. But after about 3 or 4 weeks, I'll go ahead and chop everything up, put them in sandwich Ziploc bags, and put those in a freezer Ziploc bag, and I'll stick them in the freezer, and that way I have frozen, chopped, ready to go onions, and I have my garlic pucks. I can start smelling the aroma of the garlic. I'm going to add 2 quarts of chicken stock. And this is the leftover chicken stock or chicken water from where we cooked the wings. Just going to add that in here, including the fat. That is just flavor. I'm going to let that heat up, and then I'll taste it for salt and pepper. I am planning on pureeing the vegetables and the stock to make them more creamy without having those chunks of the vegetables we started off with. The green beans and the corn we're going to leave in this state, but I want to puree the broth, carrot, celery, and onions and garlic before we add the chicken and the other vegetables. All right, so let me bring this up to a boil. I haven't tasted it yet, but I want to puree it first. I changed my mind. I'm going to turn the burner off. I have the stick blender. That looks good. All right, I'm going to taste it. I am going to add some more salt and pepper. See how it just creams it up without adding any dairy or a roux? It's beautiful. Here's our frozen green beans, and these are some home-grown green beans. We planted these together. I harvest them, blanched them for 5 minutes in some hot water, shocked them in some cold ice water, laid them out flat on a baking sheet, put them in the freezer until they were frozen solid. Then I put them in a Ziploc bag. And 1/3 of our chopped up whole chicken. We have plans for the rest of that chicken. I'm going to let that cook, heat up. Once those vegetables have thawed and that chicken has warmed up, we'll add our frozen gnocchi. Now don't forget, hit the thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe, be a part of Grammy's family. Hit that notification bell, and then you'll know every time we have a video coming out, because the next video is actually going to show how I made the gnocchi and what we did with the rest of that chicken. So the soup came up to a boil. Went ahead, took the gnocchis out of the freezer. They're not completely frozen, so I'm not ready to put them in Ziploc bags. But I do want to remove about 1.5 trays to add to our soup. Do want to taste it one more time. Oh, that's perfect. So right here we have the prepared gnocchi. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in. I'm going to turn it down to a medium-low. Gently give it a stir. Try not to break up those gnocchis. We want them to stay nice and in shape. Now we're going to bring that up to a gentle simmer until the gnocchis are done, and they will swell up and absorb some of this liquid and be nice and tender. Put the lid on, leaving a vent spot right there, and in a few minutes dinner will be ready. It's been cooking for about 20 or 30 minutes. I lost track of the time. The gnocchis have risen. I've tasted it. They're nice. They're light and fluffy on the inside. You ready to look at this? Ooh, look at that. Oh, family. And pureeing those onions, garlic, carrots, and celery in with that broth is a good way to sneak in some extra vegetables into your family. Very hot. I just want to taste one of the gnocchis. It is cooked perfect. This is really good. So that's what we're going to have for the next couple of days. So this week of dinners is done. Chicken wings and french fries we cooked in our very new toaster oven air fryer, plus our mini Thanksgiving dinner that we ate for 3 days. And now we have chicken gnocchi soup that we're going to eat for a couple days. So the next time we get together, which will be Tuesday, I'm going to show you how we made the gnocchi and what we did with the rest of that chicken. We need to get food in the freezer, family. So until next time, you have a blessed day. See you on Tuesday. And I have a no, no, yeah. Ew. And it looks like I do not have any garlic powder. No. Be aware of sharp knives.